Phillies take 2 out of 3 from the Braves. Arrieta, brilliant last night. We'll talk some NL East. Seth Everett, NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. And Seth, we talk a lot of Phillies each week here, but beating the Braves 2 out of 3, did we learn anything about these two teams? Do we think that these two teams are in it for the long haul?
Yeah, look, I've said this before. I thought that series had some buzz to it. I thought there was some life in the crowd, and it was a real enjoyable series to watch. I thought at least 2 of those games, or probably 1.5, let's be honest. It was a very impressive situation. Staying power is a thing that I have trouble with, because I think that I'm in agreement with everybody that said, at the beginning of the season, I thought the Phillies were on the right track, but that I thought they were at least a year, maybe even 2 away. Having said that, I did not see this. And if I didn't see this, a 10-game losing streak by either Atlanta or Philadelphia shouldn't shock me. And I don't think it's a crisis if it happened. I'm not predicting it by any stretch of the imagination, but I have trouble just assuming staying power and that, assuming that this is going to go for the long haul, just because, it gets hot and the season is long and these guys are young and kind of wet behind the ears. I think this is when Gabe Kapler has to do his best managing. And I think that, to have a guy like Arrieta last night do what he did, really, stepped up in a big spot, but it felt like a big spot. And, it's one of those situations where when you talk about these young players, this is great learning experience. And, oh, by the way, the Nationals are going to be heard from before this is all said and done also.
Well, I wanted to get into that because now we're at Memorial Day weekend coming up. So we're kind of at the first spot of the Major League Baseball season.
Yeah, it's the first time you look at the standings, right.
Exactly. So NL East-wise here, we got Atlanta at the top, Philadelphia right there. The Mets have kind of crawled back in. And the Nationals, everyone thought would win this division, and they're kind of at the bottom of that group. No one obviously is looking at the Marlins, but let's start with the Nationals and give us a reason why you feel that the cream will rise to the top for them.
Well, I just think there's talent, and I think that they're the kind of team that they have a couple of guys offensively that can carry an offense, and it's just a matter of can. I did make the comment at the beginning of the wintertime when the Nationals ridiculously decided to let Dusty Baker go. I said that's going to cost him. I said 6 games. So, factor that in. I still thought they could win the division because, like I said, I'm not a big believer in the Mets. Never have been.
Right.
Not this season. I'm on record. I thought Philadelphia and Atlanta were both at least a year away. You know what? Philly and Atlanta are this year's Milwaukee, Minnesota, Yankees, and Arizona and Colorado. There was that cluster of teams that kind of hit the accelerator on the rebuild program.
Right. And
give them credit. They've done it from that standpoint. What I hope then is I hope that we're talking to I hope we're having this conversation where as the season goes on, I want a 4-team race. I'd love it if the Mets stayed in this, because what that translates to me, at least, and this is something that I have looked for, is I want these interdivisional games to have the buzz that the Braves series had the other night.
Yeah.
I don't care that the Blue Jays are in town. The Blue Jays bore me.
Yeah,
the Phillies play Atlanta, play Washington now, play the Mets again. I don't care. Play all these teams and have those games have value. And that's all I'm saying.
Well, and the interesting thing is the Phillies and the Braves don't meet again until September, so they're going to go all summer long essentially not playing each other. But Phillies, Nationals, they still got a bunch, and the Phillies, Mets, we should see a lot. But if you look at Atlanta, young team, 29-19, what convinces you, if there is something, about their staying power? I know you don't like the staying power, but is there, if they are to stay, what is it about them? Because you just mentioned we think they arrived a year early.
You're talking about Atlanta now, right?
Atlanta, yeah.
So, yeah. You broke up just for that one word. It's like, I think he's talking about Atlanta, but I just wanted to make sure. The thing about Atlanta is they're younger. And when I say they're younger, they have guys that they just kind of threw to the wolves, and they're seeing a return on the investment. They are in a position where when you look at that team, I just think that they have a bigger upside, but I don't think they realize their pitching would be as good as it has been. Albies has been great. Inciarte has been great. Acuna has been great. Like, they have had performances that I don't think they were counting on. And it has been a really interesting move. My attitude has been, and this is something that a lot of teams have been worried about, is whenever you have young players, you're starting to see them the second, third time around. That's why I said, like, if all of a sudden, they go through a stretch where they lose 10 in a row, nobody would. I don't think I'd be shocked. And ultimately, just because they're in first place, the last week in May, that doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to translate into 95 or 100 wins. This is still, to me, a division, especially if it's a 4-team race where 92 wins could win the division.
Yeah, there are a lot of backing, though, that if you're at this record at this stage of the year, you're going to probably make the playoffs. Maybe not win the division, but it seems that at least 3 of the teams, Seth, will be in the playoff discussion.
Probably. I mean, let's just have that conversation in a month.
All right. Well, you'll be back in a month.
Let's just, right. Let's have that conversation in a month. Let's get to the point now where, let's see where this team, can survive. The question, 2, 3, 4 of the Braves rotation is something that I'm not 100% sold on. When you talk about the Phillies and, all the young talent, I mean, they have the veteran in Arrieta that the Phillies don't really have. I mean, that the Braves don't really have it, except for Tehran, and I wouldn't say he and Arrieta are in the same class.
Right. But
when you talk about the Phillies and you see the contributions you're getting from Pivetta and Nola, and you're seeing some of these players. I've just been very, very encouraged. And can you say the rotation can be even more consistent? Probably. And the offense really hasn't been white hot. I mean, they've scored runs, but I think this team as a collective unit can score even more.
Boston, 34-15. Yankees, 31-15. The Astros, 32-18. And then there's the Brewers, 31-19. Who is your best team at Memorial Day weekend?
Well, the Astros, to me, are still the best team. I've been very impressed with Milwaukee. I said at the beginning of the season I expected Milwaukee to be there down the stretch. My attitude has been, with the Yankees and the Red Sox, I still think the Red Sox are a better team, but, eventually one of those teams, this is going to be one of those races where people complain about the wild card, and I'm going to be like, so tough, win more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Memorial Day weekend is here.
That's one way to fix it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one way to fix it.
All these teams that get stuck in that one-game thing like the Pirates, well, don't be that wild card team. Seth Everett, NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 Live Sports Talk Network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Download the NBC Sports mobile app today. Seth, have a great weekend, man.
Oh, you got it. Thanks for having me.